So basically, I am Berardi González Rodriguez. I am faculty and associate professor here in the ECE department, as well as the director of graduate studies for our department. This is the web page of, let's call it our admission web page, and you can use this as a reference on all the materials and information that you will need for applying. So that you have in mind about our department, the application deadline now for fall semester 2021 is in January 15. If you are interested in applying, I actually suggest applying before this deadline. I'm gonna say it's like ideally as soon as possible. And I'm gonna suggest it like in the worst case around December 15 or so. So try applying 1 month before basically because we start looking at applications and making decisions at that time. One thing in terms of application fees for the PhD program, our application fee is $25. And after January 1st, that actually increases to 65. So that is something to have in mind. What are we looking for in terms of requirement? We have flexible boundaries, so you should not take, let's call it this as very rigid boundaries. It's for a PhD, a GPA of 3.5 in a 4.0 scale is okay. For international applicants, like the case of you guys, I'm gonna say that mostly we look in a case-by-case basis, and we have faculty who are from India, and they are well aware of for different universities what is a good GPA. This is where we have let's call it rigid boundaries in test scores. For instance, in terms of TOEFL, we are looking for something around 100, but the graduate school has a minimum of 80. So any score below 80 is like that is not acceptable. For the GRE, we are looking basically scores in this order. It's like 148 or above in verbal, in quantitative, 115 verbal, 3.5 in analytical. But again, it's like the boundary there is quite flexible. So that is kind of in terms, let's call it, of what are the requirements for applying and what are our deadlines. We have lots, basically all our PhD students are supported financially, either as RAs, as TAs, or through fellowships. Starting, if like this year, we're gonna have a fellowship program where all the applicants will be, let's call it, considered for that fellowship. And we are gonna select, okay, the students who are gonna be given these fellowships based on academic merit when we are judging the applications. So students basically could be admitted and supported in either one of these 3 ways. And those students that are supported by a department fellowship, they are free in the first year to rotate among groups and then eventually select a definitive, let's call it, advisor that will support them from year 2 onwards. So the fellowship is something that is going to give students lots of flexibility to explore the program, as well as figure out, if they are not clear, on the research interest. So we have basically these 3 funding mechanisms, and as I mentioned, all our PhD students, they are funded. In terms of optics and photonics, we have 4 faculty very active in this area and with main interests here. One is Steve Blair, that today is not joining, so I'm going to go in more detail through him. It's like his interest basically in applications of optics and photonics to problems in biology and medicine. Stuff that he does is, for instance, plasmonic antennas for enhancing light-matter interaction, uh, DNA and protein microarrays, as well as he has a very exciting research program on neural photonics. That this is an area that is the University of Utah is very strong in, basically using light to affect and or record neural signals. We have Weilu and Rajesh that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes about the research, and also me. Let me go a little bit about my research group. Uh, what I am historically focused on is on terahertz, that is the long wavelength, let's call it extreme of photons. I have quite a big group, and in particular, I work very closely with other groups here at the U. For instance, Apratin, which showing in here, he works together with Rajesh and me. Suransu, who is a grad student, is like he also has worked very closely between both groups. Uh, Shaki, that is at this point a third year grad student, is like she works with me in some Air Force funded projects, collaborating with other faculty in materials like Sriram Krishnamurti and also Mike Scarpula. So all my students in general, we are, let's call it, me and my students, very interdisciplinary. And our research lies at the intersection between electronics, optics, photonics, material science, and computing. So we are intrinsically very multidisciplinary. These are some words that can, let's call it, describe what we do. And basically, our group is quite well externally funded, so we have lots of opportunities for incoming students. Let me mention two exciting research directions that we're following. One is to try to use machine learning as a way to basically design smaller and ideally better photonic devices. This is something that Suransu has been recently exploring, and I think that is an area that is really cool, kind of to mix is like this idea of computation with devices, and also it's like to explore new materials in this context. And this is something where there are lots of challenges in order to try to make devices that are smaller, faster, more energy efficient, that basically can bring up photonics, for instance, for computing to the next level. Another thing where I am very excited is on basically exploring new materials for this application. An example of these materials is cadmium arsenide, that this is a material that is a 3D analog to graphene. You might have heard of graphene. There was a Nobel Prize recently given for the discoveries of this material. This is a material that is 3D and has the same properties, so it can open many interesting opportunities, like for instance in plasmonics, ultra-fast speed for devices, and so on. So basically, by using these materials, using these computational approaches, we are trying to make a revolution in terms of optoelectronics and electronics. So kind of that broadly describes what are my interests and what we do in my group. Okay, and now is like either Rajesh or Weilu could share about a little bit about the groups.
Sure. Vailu, why don't you go ahead? And I just want to add that as Berardi mentioned, there are lots of opportunities for fellowships and assistantships, and these are highly competitive. So we're really looking for the best students from your institutes. And that's one of the reasons we are doing this sort of webinar, because we want to be able to talk to you, and we want you to be able to ask questions of us as well, so you can understand the level of research and also the support that you would receive if you were a PhD student here. Velu, are you going to share something or?
Sure, I can start sharing my summary of my research. Can anyone see my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Wei Lu Gao, a new assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of Utah. So so I just starting my group, and so for my research, I have three thrusts or three areas. So the first area is about reconfigurable photonics. So in these areas, we developed the new materials, which is mainly the phase change materials. You can see some our very recent deposition of some of these materials. And then with these materials, we after our calculation, we developed the devices out of that for the reconfigurability and the programmability. And we integrate these devices into the optical systems. And with the modeling and the calculation of optical systems, we can guide the material development again, so that we form the closed loop fashion to develop the reconfigurable photonic systems. And we plan to utilize this optical and reconfigurable systems for the optical computing and artificial intelligence to accelerate the computing with the intense data in the AI areas. And this is for the first area. And the second area, my interest in the physics of ultra-strong coupling. So specifically, I'm going to study the strong interaction between the cavity photons and the exciton in the semiconductors, and more specifically, the semiconducting nanomaterials. So what I'm extremely interested in is the influence of the ultra-strong coupling on the ground state properties of the materials. So when the coupling strength is a significant portion of your energy, so you will form the new ground state with the materials, so that you can have the strong influence or strong modification on the fundamental properties of the materials, such as the chemical reaction rate and the physical properties like the conductivity of materials. And also this is a very standard and a very traditional schemes for the quantum optics studies, which can find applications for the quantum information processing and the computations. And my third thrust is about terror sensing. So in this area, we are going to develop the new terahertz sensors using the metamaterials and using the new optimization and the design method, so that we can design the better and ultra sensitive terahertz sensors, which can be integrated into the large scale systems. And these sensors can find applications in the like biomolecule and chemical molecule detections of the, such as the hazards in the food and hazards in the transportation system and so on. So currently I have one PhD student, and although my group is pretty small compared to others, that means I have an opening right now. So yeah, so if you show interest, if you have any questions, you can shoot me an email, and yeah, that's it.
Great, thank you, Wei Lu.
Yeah.
And I will do a quick overview as well. I think you have to.
I have to.
I think it'll take it away. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yeah.
So I can first very briefly. Most people probably don't know where we are, so we should probably introduce. So this is a map of North America, as many of you probably know. So we are over here, which is the western half of the U.S. It's a state called Utah. So you can see New York is there, San Francisco is there, somewhere on the western side. It's a very mountainous state. So that's kind of where we're located at the University of Utah. It's a very nice, very safe city. So, you know, you can ask the students what it's like to live here. It's not as expensive as many other states as well, cities as well. So it's a great place to live. This is what it looks like. So it's quite pretty, you know, big mountains, lots of snow. That's our campus right here. That's our, that's our library. Wait, again, maybe I don't recognize them, but that's a football stadium. But you can see it's a very nice campus. So, nice quality of life. So my research is, I just took a few examples. I've probably been here the longest among all three of us here. My group works primarily on 2D and 3D nanofabrication, computational nanophotonics, very complex devices, computational imaging, so things like cameras for autonomous cars, robots, drones, things like that. We also have some work in deep brain microscopy, where we do computational microscopy, where we're looking inside the brain of the mouse. So finally, computational holography. I'm originally from Kerala, as you can say from my name. And of course, this is a classical dance from Kerala, as some of you probably recognize. And that's a computationally derived hologram. Generally speaking, my lab works primarily on these four areas: various approaches to nanofabrication, approaches to machine learning, primarily related to photography and various forms of imaging, optics and photonics, both from fundamental in the order of from quantum optics more recently to astronomy and various other things. And we go all the way from basic theory to some extent to systems and applications, which means that in my lab, most students actually have to be extremely independent and have to essentially know a little bit of lots of things, as some of my students can tell you. So my lab, and I think it's true for all three of us, we expect a lot out of our students. Students tend to be extremely successful. Most of the students who graduated from my lab end up in, I can say some companies, they've ended up at Intel, Apple, some national labs, one's at Caltech, various startups in Silicon Valley and around the US primarily. So most of the students tend to be very successful. And that's my last slide. I should also add, let's go back. I should also add that we have John Bolke here online, who is our graduate student advisor. So again, if you have any questions about, just applying, he's the best person to answer in addition to Bharati.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to just talk to everybody a little bit. But
yeah, go ahead.
yeah.
John, the floor is yours if you want to introduce yourself. And
yeah, my name is John Bolke. You probably see my name on the web page. I'm the person who responds to your emails about replying to getting into the program. And so our faculty are very busy. They're not always available to respond to your emails quickly. However, I am. And so I can help you through the application process of answering questions. Just to give you guys some advice in filling out your application, many times students get hung up on writing a statement of purpose. That's the last section where you describe a little bit about what you want to get into. Some students write us 5-page essays about when they were a little kid building circuits and robots and how much they loved it. We don't care. we want to see what you can learn and what you're interested in doing now in your life. And so we'd like to learn about your experiences in your bachelor's degree programs and what you want to learn in coming and doing research for us. And so we only are looking for about a half page to a full page. And then another part that can help you is when you're doing your letters of recommendation. You do not need to approach your faculty or your supervisor at work. You can just send them an email and saying, I'm going to apply to the program. May I use you as a reference? And then when you do that, then they agree to it, just as a professional courtesy, you can get their email address and their name and put it into the application. And then when you submit the application, this will trigger an email to that faculty member, and it'll give them a standard form, and then they can attach a letter of recommendation to send to me to review with our graduate committee. And so just so you know, I do not personally make the decisions. I'm the administrator. I'm the person to help you through the process. I have a graduate committee. We have 7 faculty members who review the applications and compare them to other applications. And so it's nothing personal. If you're not accepted, we would love to accept everybody. Unfortunately, it's logistically impossible to get everybody over to our university. But I just want to iterate to you that I am here to help you, and I can help you jump through the many hoops and processes. First step is applying. Second step is getting accepted. Third step is waiting for your I-20 and then your embassy, and then coming to the United States. I will help you through all of those steps. And so it does take time, but we have a fantastic university. I recruit, normally between 20 and 30 students every year to go through this process. And so if you're feeling nervous or scared or unsure of this is a good choice, I just want to reassure you, this is a fantastic choice. University of Utah is a fantastic program with great resources. I love to connect with the students after they graduate and get great jobs. I help them with visa immigration processes after they graduate, and they are so grateful for the faculty who really invest their time to teach them advanced skills and have a wonderful experience. So I just wanted to express that to you, as we have a fantastic program. And so I look forward to reviewing your applications and help you with that. So I hope I didn't take too much time, Rajesh, but I just wanted to express my gratitude for so many people joining this call today.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, John. Yeah, I can reiterate. I mean, the application process is very competitive, but once you're accepted, I mean, there are lots of resources that you can rely on. So Rangshu, do you want to share your screen? So again, take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions and try to really understand what a PhD, what it takes to do a successful PhD, and what can you hope to get out of it at the end of 4 or 5 years of your perhaps your most productive years of your life, right? Hopefully not. You'll go on to do even greater things, but typically this is the time where you can do really exciting stuff, cutting edge research where people can take note of what you're doing, and you can really change the world. I mean, Surangshu is a good example of this because he's working on some really cutting edge technologies where we are literally the best in the world, and and the proof to some extent is the number of high quality research publications that he made, patents, and all these really wonderful academic output that Surangshu has produced. So Surangshu, so next Surangshu will give us a very brief research presentation. Again, feel free to ask questions, and then at the end, maybe in 10-15 minutes, we'll have a brief panel discussion, and if you have any additional questions. Go ahead, Surangshu.
Yeah, thanks, Rajesh. Yeah, so I'll be very brief, 10-15 minutes presentation. So yeah, hello and good morning, everyone in India. This is me, Surangshu Banerjee, and I'm a finishing PhD student here at the University of Utah in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. So before I start, I believe I'm audible to everyone, right? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to be talking about my PhD, which is about inverse design, flat optics, and multifunctional nanophotonics. So before I just introduce the formal outline of my talk today, I'll just briefly explain what is an inverse design and why do we really care to do it. So as you can see in the top panel of my slide here, this is just a formal description of what an inverse problem looks like. But let's understand it from very easy example. So this is a picture that I had taken some year back when I was visiting India, my native place. And I fortunately I'm a big fan of taking pictures, and I took a picture. Now 2 years cut short to 2020 when I was making the slides for this presentation today in the morning. I thought to include this picture, and I kind of wondered, like, when I took this picture 2 years back, with what did I really take the picture with? I mean, did I use my Google Pixel, or did I was using my DSLR camera? I was actually kind of very confused. And what I did was I opened up my PC and I was searching in the photos folder to see which one of these were actually taking the picture with. So what I realized is what I was kind of doing is basically what an inverse problem is. It's trying to find the cause, or in this case, the source, which kind of produced the effect or the picture of the 3D scene here. So speaking of cameras in general, as you can see, cameras in itself as a device have really come across a long way back from the 1850s, 1840s, right up to the current age of 2020. And really, I mean, with the advancements in the SLR cameras, we have actually squeezed this entire camera, the picture quality, the picture, so everything within a very small packaging system. So much so that right now, if I kind of go ahead and kind of pictorially represent this entire revolution of a camera, for an example, I can actually go ahead and see that it pretty closely resembles our own Darwinian evolution. Now the question is, as you can see, that as and when time has progressed, we have kind of brought down the size, the weight of our imaging systems in a very small packaging component. The entire circuitry or the entire system has gotten complicated to an extent where now it becomes really difficult to understand if I give you an image of a 3D scene, a 2D image, to really ascertain whether this was really taken from a smartphone or whether this was taken with a DSLR camera. I mean, you can use analytic methods to backtrack the camera parameters, but with the current advance of smartphones, it becomes really confusing. Now, this is why we kind of do the inverse design for all these kind of optical and nanophotonic elements. And this was honestly when I started my PhD 4 years back, was really motivated to do inverse design and look into this area of inverse design to see what's the next big thing in imaging. Like, can we really answer the question of putting more stress on reducing these optical components even further? This brings me to the outline, the formal outline of my talk today, where in the first section, I'm just going to talk about these diffractive optic elements or diffractive lenses, which kind of we used to make even more smaller, thinner, as well as efficient cameras. And in the next part or the later part of my talk, I'll just briefly go over how we extended the same concept right now to design on-chip nanophotonic devices, thereby enabling what has been proclaimed as the photonic Moore's law. So let's start with this section where our main focus, again to reiterate, was to reduce the weight as well as to reduce the overall component size and make portable and thinner cameras. So as we can see here from the left-hand side of my slide here, I mean, it's left-hand side with my screen, is that we can actually bring down the size even of conventional smartphone cameras right now by employing what we call a diffractive lens instead of a refractive lens. Now we can actually use this, as you can see here, to bring down the entire footprint of my camera system and replace the camera assembly with a single lens, and as well as without a compromise in imaging performance. Now we can do this with what we kind of proclaim as a multi-level diffractive lens or MDL. And this again can be computationally inverse designed or computationally optimized, as well as now fabricated with a grayscale photolithography technique. So moving ahead, we showed that this powerful strategy of computationally inverse designing these MDLs and utilizing a grayscale photolithography technique, we can actually design MDLs for each discrete spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum, as you can see here. But when we kind of go on and kind of try to try to analyze the performance, we need to really come up with real numbers. And as you can see, this again is not really apples to apples comparison, given the huge market for lenses that we have in comparison to not binary diffractive lens or a metal lens, but even conventional refractive lenses. But even for an instant, if we take this common notion or the popular notion that the refractive lens can focus 80% of the incident light on its surface to its focal spot, we see that our multi-level diffractive lens can easily achieve that limit with ease. And even it can comparably perform on the same scale with most commonly or recently touted to be the next revolution in lens design, that is a metal lens. Moving ahead, when we really have shown that this can actually perform on the scale of a refractive lens or even a metal lens, the next big thing was to kind of concentrate on what we can show with these, what kind of imaging we can show with these kind of multi-level diffractive lenses. So there were three important aspects on which we currently highlighted on. The first was achromaticity. The second was the extended depth of focus. And last but not the least was the wide field of view parameter for these MDLs. So let's start with the first thing. So let's start with achromaticity. Now, I've already shown that we kind of already designed these computational MDLs for different discrete bands of the electromagnetic spectrum. But the challenge was something else. The challenge which was put before us was, can we come up with a single design? As I show you, let me iterate, it's a single design which can actually do imaging, or let's say perform or operate across almost the entire electromagnetic spectrum or bandwidth. So we kind of overcome that challenge, and we showed that it is really possible, as you can see from this design here, as well as we show some of the imaging with this kind of MDL. Moving ahead, we also kind of showed that in addition to still images or still photography, you can also kind of do video imaging with these kind of MDLs. As you can see, we perform scenarios where both we do indoor as well as outdoor imaging, and not only in the visible, but you can actually see imaging being done across different spectrums of the electromagnetic band. I'm not sure if this video is getting played, but I'll just go ahead and play that.
Yeah, it's working.
Oh, it's working. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, so this were kind of, so this was my fellow colleague meme. We were kind of doing it on that day. So that's the first part of MDLs. Yeah. So moving ahead, we kind of showed that like it's not achromaticity that we can target. We can also open up another area, which is again a challenging area for lens design, and that's having an extended depth of focus. So this schematic here kind of represents what an extended depth of focus is. It's to just take where you have the depth of focus for a conventional lens. Now what we do is kind of computationally extend this range. And in this case, we kind of extended the range for up to 1200 millimeters. And this is a fabricated design that we have. We kind of performed some very basic imaging experiments where we kind of studied the magnification by varying both the object and the image distances. And in none of the cases, any anomaly was kind of seen, but it all kind of follows geometrical optics phenomena. So we were not doing anything which is beyond physics here. So if the physics was perfectly worked out for this scenario, and moving ahead, we also kind of showed imaging. So here we kind of depict two different imaging scenes where, as you can see in the first case, all the objects are stationary. In the second case, we have one of the objects which is kind of moving across the screen. But the key takeaway here is that all the objects are perfectly in focus across this scene. Now here below, we also did an extended depth of field imaging. As you can see here, this is some fun time in the lab that we kind of have. And we kind of showed that you can also do an extended depth of field imaging with this MDL of roughly about 6,000 millimeters or 6 meters. The last, and this is one area we are still currently working on, so, but I'll still cover it nonetheless, is achieving a wide field of view. This is a bit difficult to achieve. As you can see, like when we have a wide field of view, we tend to decrease the focal length. And that's one area where how you can actually have a wide field of view. But what happens is when you decrease this focal length and you kind of operate in the near field optical regime, you have to depend on full wave simulations as opposed to scalar simulations. Optics gets complicated, designs become a bit difficult to achieve. But even the key takeaway here was that with an on-axis optimized design, we were able to go up to 30 degrees or a full 60 degrees field of view with our designed MDLs. So finally, apart from all of this, what we kind of showed is that now what we can do is that we can complete this entire design cycle of a multi-level diffractive lens, starting from the parameters that we have at hand. We optimize, simulate, finally fabricate, as well as then go on to characterize these MDLs for whatever the scenario that we are kind of targeting. So we can target either a chromaticity, extended depth of focus, or even a wide field of view. Moving ahead, which lets me to the next section, is to implement the same philosophy or the same concepts that we kind of employed for MDLs to bring down the size for these lenses such that the overall size of the camera reduces, is to kind of do the same for even on-chip nanophotonic circuits. Now, in this case, what kind of happens is when you kind of reduce, as Baradi was kind of pointing out, each of these devices' footprint, you can stack more and more devices within the SIM footprint area, something which I would say even Intel was kind of doing it for the last 10 years, proclaiming that as the Moore's law. Or so now we can kind of do the same for photonic devices and claim a photonic Moore's law equivalent for this. So again, for here, we kind of use a very similar strategy of inverse designing or computational inverse designing these structures. In this case, we use machine learning, but we can also previously have used optimization algorithms to design these structures and finally make these structures with an e-beam lithography technique. Some of the basic structures that we already kind of showcased or shown is a 50-50 beam splitters in both a Y as well as a T junction configuration, as well as basic bends in your photonic circuits. So here too, not a lot of progress have still been made since this was what we incorporated in the later part coming from the MDL background, but we still were able to design these structures with almost state-of-the-art performance and show now that this is indeed possible. And a lot of different game-changing applications, non-photonic applications, can now be enabled with the use of our design technique. This brings me to the end of my presentation here, where I kind of thank all my collaborators, my advisors, the people whom I have worked with, the academic and research institutions apart from Utah who has helped me ask to continue this research further. And that's it. So that's from my side here. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Surangshu. Yeah, one interesting thing to point out here is that we do collaborate very widely with both other universities as well as industry as well. And one of the great things about being at the University of Utah is that you do have opportunities to work closely with companies. So you have opportunities for internships and things like that. For instance, Surangshu is actually doing an internship at a small company right now. So lots of exciting opportunities. The other thing I should also point out is that much of the work that Surangshu is doing is really relevant to many things in, I would say daily life, but things like autonomous cars, virtual reality. So you can imagine if we could do this Zoom in a more realistic environment or augmented reality, and various other things as well. Cameras, obviously. Great. Now I want to open the floor for some questions, and we haven't heard anything from you folks in India. So if you have any questions or comments, this is a good opportunity. If not, I will seed something, but let's give them a second. I don't hear anything. So I'm gonna kick off a brief panel discussion, I suppose. So we have a few seasoned PhD as well as new PhD students. So yeah, go ahead, Mohammed. You have a question?
So my question is that do we need to clear any GATE exam in India?
So as we talked about before, you have to do what's called a TOEFL, which is the English exam. But I think for most students from India, this is not a problem. John, is there anything else that I don't know?
So if you look on our website, we are currently offering a GRE waiver for schools that have an ABET accreditation. The ABET is an accreditation that's defined in the United States for high-level engineering programs. And we would encourage students to try to take the GRE if possible. I realize that with COVID, that it is very difficult to be able to do that. And so we are approving applications without a GRE exam on a case-by-case basis, depending on your institution. And so many of our faculty are from India who are familiar with the landscape of the different research institutions, of which are the high quality institutions and which may not be as good. The fact that you're actually in this meeting, attending a high level university is a very good sign that you probably will qualify for a GRE waiver. We would encourage you to try to take it if possible, because that does help expedite the process of getting your application approved quickly with our graduate committee. However, we realize that under the circumstances, it's not always possible. And so, but the TOEFL exam and the GRE are the big exams. We also look very closely at your grade point average. We are familiar with the Indian grade point average and how that's on the transcript. And so that's not a problem for us to interpret that. Berardi, is there anything else about the GRE waiver you want to mention to these guys?
Yeah, it's like little things like as Sean said, I would like to highlight again that now it's like basically it's like in most cases we are waiving that test because of the COVID related problems. So that is like if you cannot take it, that is not a problem. So I still encourage you to apply.
Right. But yeah, but if possible, we would encourage you to try to take it. But if it's not possible, we understand. It just helps us in reviewing your application to have it go through quicker. But if you can't take it, that means you should still apply to the program, and we will look more closely at your grade point average and your research background and your personal interests. Those are some of the key things that we look for when we review your application.
I would also emphasize that rather than, I mean, the exams, personally, I know Berardi does the same. Many of us look for students who have some research experience, because succeeding in PhDs, in a PhD program is a little bit different than being able to take, you know, get good grades in an exam. Sometimes they are correlated, but they don't have to be. So I personally look for students who have taken the initiative to do some research and learned something from it or solved problems, because that level of commitment and initiative is what I believe makes a very successful PhD student.
So I think also publishing papers. You know, we like to read applications, and you know, part of this is having a CV or a resume. If you have published a paper with a professor as part of your master's program or even your bachelor's program, if you have published and done any type of research, that's also great to put in your application. So we can look at that and read your abstract and see what you have accomplished and what you're interested in. Those things are very helpful.
Yeah, there was a question in the chat that I should also mention about, is it possible to change the field from one to the other? The short answer is yes. In fact, I've had several students who did that. However, just keep in mind, it's a little bit difficult if you don't have the necessary undergraduate courses. But if you do have some undergraduate background courses in optics or photonics, then it becomes a little bit easier. But it's definitely possible. But I would say you have to be quite good in terms of, you should have some research experience. Any other questions from the students? You don't have to be shy. It's morning for you. Let's see, I did get a question on chat. Is it okay if the GRE scores are soon after a few days of yes, that should be fine. Like John said, the GRE, we understand because of COVID, GRE is a little bit of a challenge. It's a challenge all over the world. By the way, it's not just your problem. It's a problem for everybody. So if it is delayed, it's okay as long as you let John know, for instance. So,
yeah, and then also sometimes students will score a 157 or 156 on a quantitative analysis, and our department standard is 158. They're worried about not getting accepted. We will still accept you if you're a point or two away from the department threshold. And so I know that's always a big concern for students. And so some of you may have already taken the GRE or have it scheduled. Don't let your score hold you back from applying if it's within 2 or 3 points. You know, we're willing to overlook that if you have the right research background for that. But I think it's worth mentioning here that we do like to have a score of 158 in quantitative analysis, 150 in the writing analysis, and then analytical is a 3.5. That's kind of what we have found is a good threshold to accept GRE scores. Great.
I see a couple more questions on chat. One is, how long does it take to complete the PhD? That's a great question, by the way. And again, feel free to privately send me questions if you don't want to put it publicly. I won't reveal your name, so it's perfectly fine. So generally speaking, I would say it takes 4 to 5 years, but maybe Surangshu, you might have been pretty fast, right? I don't know. How long did it take for you?
For me, it's 3.5 years to 4.
Okay, so he's one of the exceptional students. He was able to finish it in 3.5 years, which is relatively fast, I would say. Typically, I mean, Berardi, do you want to jump in? I think it's like 4.5, maybe.
Yeah, I'm gonna say in my group is between 3 to 6.
Okay.
Okay, 3.5 to 6. Surangshu might have been the fastest.
Yeah, And that's pretty much the same around the US. I know in the UK it's a little bit different, and Europe is a little bit different. And also it's also different if you have masters. So I have had students, for instance, from China who came with the masters in optics and photonics, and they can actually graduate quicker. And I would say they take about 3 years, because if you come in with the background of with a pretty significant background, then you can actually complete a little bit faster. Also, I should mention what is required to do a PhD. It really is important that you understand a PhD is really a research project, right? You have to bring something new to the world. It's some new idea. It's your new idea that you actually bring to the world which did not exist before. And that's the contribution. So it has to be fairly substantial. And the way we try to understand what is substantial is by looking at research publications, because this is peer reviewed, and your peers, your scientists around the world have read the papers and agree that what you've done is worthy of being something new. And we really want folks who are really looking to change the world, right? We want to do new things. I mean, this is the whole point of doing research, is we want to be cutting edge. I have one more question from Aditi on a question about, let's see, I'm an MTech photonics student and working in theoretical simulation of optical fiber amplifiers. I'm very interested in exploring optical communication challenges. Can you elaborate a little bit about the research going on in this domain in your labs? Yeah, fantastic. Optical communications, of course, is a very, very big topic, very active area of research. I would say Steve Blair, who is not on the call today, is one of the leaders in this field. So there's quite a bit of work on different kinds of fiber optics, for instance, that can support higher order modes and things like that. Amplifiers themselves, I personally don't work on nonlinear optics, but there are other faculty who do. Yeah, I can. The only connection I can talk about is primarily what Sudhanshu talked about in terms of chip level photonics, which is of course relevant to optical communications, because the light that comes in from the fiber has to be coupled to the chip so you can process it, right? So you want to be because all the detectors are electronics based, so you need to convert those photons to electrons in order to detect them, and you need to be able to distinguish photons of different color, different polarization, whatnot, to be able to do different channels of communication. Very recently, my group has been looking at quantum optics-based communication, where we're looking at entanglement and things like that, which is, again, not nonlinear, but linear quantum optics. So essentially, we're looking at single photon level entanglements. So yeah, I don't know if that, Berardi, I don't know if you want to chime in here.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. It's like, you see, it's like here, it's like, to me, it's kind of the same. It's like while I work, it's like everything tends to be linear. Okay, and it's like where I have interest in nonlinearities may come from electronics, not from optics.
Yeah. So however, you know, the areas generally turn out to be very broad and very interdisciplinary. In fact, if you look at where the most exciting work is happening, it's really where the majority of people are not looking at. So things like conventional optical fiber amplifiers are commercial, right? So you can go buy Qualcomm, I mean, not Qualcomm, but what's a router company, Comcast, and all these large companies actually build them and deploy them. But the question is, you know, could you do something different to enable something different, whether it's in a different field or doing implementing what the amplifier is doing in a slightly different way or in a more advantageous way, and so on. Wei Lu, do you want to jump in? Anything to add here?
I think that Wei Lu
He's frozen. Okay, that's fine. Hopefully I answered that question. Let's see. I got another question. Are the PhD students eligible for the fellowship till the work is completed? The answer is yes. So all PhD students are supported completely by either the university or by the advisor until they complete it. So you're not expected to pay for anything. In fact, you are paid a salary, a stipend, essentially. And this is true for I would say this is true for most universities in the US, by the way. This is most good universities in the US, I would say. Aditi Mehta mentioned, yes, that's a great point. OAM modes in fiber amplifier is a new thing I've explored. I think that's a really great point. So you should definitely apply if you're interested, because OAM modes not in my lab's looking at OAM modes for other applications, not necessarily for nonlinear optics. There's lots of really exciting stuff in OAM in quantum optics, as well as imaging, for instance, imaging through degraded environments. So imagine a car that's trying to drive through a snowstorm or a sandstorm. How do you see through the sand, right? Or if there's a big monsoon rain, how can an autonomous car be able to see through fog or rain or snow and so on? OAM modes have some interesting properties which we believe can enable them to see through degraded media like that. So there are lots of very exciting stuff happening in OAMs. So if you have some experience in that, definitely write to me. And all our emails are on the website, and my email's on the Zoom link as well. So, and if you need to catch a hold of John and you don't know his email, you can email me. I'm pretty good about responding. So. Any other questions? I would ask any, Apratim, do you want to add anything to your experience? I know you guys have been on, so.
No.
You want to give some advice to your younger version?
I would say I would just stress on something that John already mentioned, the statement of purpose. When we are usually applying from India, we are not very experienced on this. So exactly the advice that John provided on writing the statement of purpose, that should be followed as much as possible. And you should definitely mention exactly, probably like which professor or which group you want to work with and what your background is. I think application wise, that's pretty important, and something that a lot of us applying from India are not very familiar with doing previously.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, when you fill out your application, there's a section where you get to select 3 professors that you would like to work for, as well as 3 type of research groups. And so Rajesh and Berardi and Welu, they have their own section of optics. And so I do recommend selecting that. Part of it, once we review your application and it's approved by our graduate committee, that's the part where we send your application to these different faculty who you suggested. And so it's worth your time to look at our University of Utah website, look up the faculty and staff directory, see which research groups are there, learn about some of the faculty to be able to make the best choices. Because if you want to get accepted, you want to match the faculty who are doing the research that you're interested in doing in your application, because that way we can direct it to them. Not all 40 of our faculty are going to read every single application that applies to them. They usually pick out their top applicants. And so please take the time to fill that out correctly when you fill out your application, and that will help me and you find the right match.
I would also add, don't feel shy about reaching out to any professor. And this, in general, this is true for any university in the US. I would say, the worst case, they'll ignore you, right? So definitely reach out and ask questions.
Yeah, and many times when a student reaches out to me and they just say, hey, can I be accepted? I'm not going to give you an answer yes or no. I'm going to say, hey, yeah, let's talk to a professor. Can you send me your resume? Can I forward it to a professor who can look at that and then decide if they want to set up an interview? And so part of this process as well is after we review your application and it's approved, a faculty member may reach out to you and perhaps conduct a Zoom call interview with you, and they may interview several different students before they choose to make an offer letter. Just so you know, this process is not super fast. It does take some time. This takes place in January and February, right as we're starting a new semester. So the process of reviewing applications and making offers does take a good couple of months. It's not till about the end of February, beginning of March, till faculty are making decisions after interviewing lots of candidates from all over the world. So don't submit your application in December and expect to find out the first week in January. You know, there might be a few people that may happen with, but a majority of our PhD students get accepted about March.
I will also add one thing that I've noticed with very successful students are you can also reach out to faculty and start working with faculty even before you actually come to the University of Utah. In fact, I would say one of the best students I had, I started working with him while he was still in China, even before he was admitted to the university. And in fact, by the time he reached the university, we've actually done enough work to actually publish a paper. That's a very, very good sign that you would be an excellent researcher, because that means you are really self-motivated and you're able to do the research, you know. And in today, you know, with good computers and decent internet connection, everyone's working from home anyway. So it is possible for you to do pretty significant amount of work, you know, even when you're there. So don't feel shy about asking. This is what I would say. Take the initiative if at all possible. Okay, I will say, I know we are getting to the end of the hour. I want to give an opportunity to Ekata to say a few words. Do you have, Ekata, I know you are one of the newest PhD students. So do you want to give the students in India some advice, your experience, and what would you tell them?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Yeah, I just welcome you all in the University of Utah. I have just joined this fall in this pandemic. So I made my visa, passport, the documents, the pre-processing admission procedure, and everything is done very smoothly. And I reached the ISS people and the most cordial, really helpful person that you have talked and you listened from them is our grad coordinator John Bulk. I must mention her name. He is genuinely a great person to help you out, even if you're in India or in US. Okay, he is the person you can reach always through your mail or anywhere. You can stop by to here his office. He's a really helpful guy, so you don't feel shy to reach him, or even the professors and everyone else here, and they are really very helpful. So as you can understand that it is a kind of impossible journey to make an admission in this pandemic situation, but really these guys are so helpful to make this out. And one more thing I'll just add, that Utah is a beautiful place to start your journey in USA. So it's a beautiful place with all the opportunities of research, and other things are that if you are just liking the environment, the weather, it is very nice. And the and if you are just thinking about some Indian culture, and we have a really great ISA team, Indian Student Association, over here. So you guys can really help. They are really help you out, like from picking up from the airport, hosting you for free for a few months, so till the accommodations. So it's a really helpful journey when you are coming to Utah. So I think this will help you a lot. And obviously University of Utah will give you some opportunity to start your journey over here, because they have a great union, and that union helps you to start up with your groceries and everything over there. That's how John helped me to suggesting to suggest this for me. And it was really nice from him. And when you get the university card, then the transport over the Utah is absolutely free. So yeah, you can explore the Utah as well. So besides your research, I'll just add some things that will just you can feel like you are just not doing your academic one, but you can also relax in University of Utah and do your research in with your peace of mind. So it's a kind of, I started now, but I can assume that it's a peaceful and quite interesting journey to be. So yeah, and one more thing, yeah, my partner is also from this university, and he has graduated from this department. So he has just completed in within 3 years. So it is much less than Indian university. So you can get the job, you can explore your research until and unless you are giving your poor performance. So that will take you a long journey to PhD or some research. But until unless you are giving your best one, they are happy to help you to graduate you much earlier, get a job, explore the world, and yes, wish you the luck for upcoming future.
If Akata, if you don't mind me saying something, Akata and I worked together for about 6 months. We exchanged emails literally on a weekly, if not daily basis, didn't we, Akata?
Sometimes hourly too.
Yeah, hourly. And I responded. I was able to get you the help. We got you the embassy appointments. We did a lot. It was a lot of work to get you here to here. And I was so excited to be able to meet you for the first time in person and to help you do this. And I admit many times it was a huge sacrifice to make this journey to this point. But coming to Utah, we have a strong Indian population. We have a lot of great, wonderful students that we love, we cherish, we care about, and we want to help them succeed. And so it is a very safe and wonderful place to move to Utah. And I'll do everything in my power, if you're accepted, to find a way to get you here.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Kata. Yeah, it's impressive to travel halfway across the world during the pandemic. So I should also add that, one of the big advantages of going to graduate school in the US, I did the same as you, 20 years ago. And I was probably younger than you actually, but it's the opportunity is really there to meet folks from all over the planet, right? I mean, it's not just, and that exists at the university as well. So you do interact with students from literally almost every country on earth, and it's a very special opportunity to be able to do that, because it really opens your minds and the way you think and so on. So it really makes you grow as a person. I should definitely add to what Akata said is that most of us on this call really expect a lot from our students, and I know Surangshu, Apratim, and Memes there too, I see, can really attest that all of us work very hard because we are extremely passionate about what we do, not because we want to just get a degree and move on, but we really want to make a difference. We want to do something that didn't exist before. Otherwise, why do it? Why waste your time? And this is really what I personally look for to students who really want to spend the time to do it. So it is a lot of hard work. So it's not it's not an easy thing, but at the end, you will not only learn a lot, you would have enriched yourself, but you would have pretty significant skills that you take into the world. I should also add that the weather in Utah, you should be aware that it's a desert, so it's a high desert, which means that there's big changes, probably like the Himalayas. Although I've never been to the Himalayas, so I'm not sure what it's like. But in the summer it's very hot, in the winter it's very cold, so you should be aware of that. But probably some parts of India are like that. Apratim, do you guys know? Is it similar to some parts of India? No?
So actually, I'm from Calcutta, so it's not similar to Calcutta at all. Calcutta weather at all. It's mostly humid and warm, and lots of rains in Calcutta usually. But yeah, over here it's very dry. Summers are very hot, but winters are also extremely cold. And we get a lot of snow, which I like personally, but I don't know if everyone does. So yeah.
Yep.
But one thing that's nice about Utah is the weekends. We have the most beautiful mountain ranges of hiking and forests and deserts, beautiful places. There are 5 national parks within Utah within a couple hour drivings. And you can have the very best weekends you can ever imagine going to Arches or Zion's National Parks. Many famous American cowboy movies are all filmed in Utah. So there's a lot of really beautiful places that you've seen in the movies were made here.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, John's. It's pretty sporty here, so people are probably pretty sporty. I mean, yeah, you get a lot of outdoor activities here and there. So if you're interested, I think Utah is actually a big place. I mean, from my experience, I can say like I kind of when I got the offer from Utah, I just took it because I was also like, as Apratim said, we are from Kolkata, so probably pretty close to the Himalayas, and I kind of like the mountains, so just moved here when I got the chance. So yeah.
Great. Before we end, Velug or Baradi, do you anything to chime in? I don't want to keep it. I know it's really late for us, so I don't want to keep you guys too long.
Yeah, it's like something is like feel free to reach out. It's like to us if you have any question, if you want to know more about our research groups, any aspect about Utah, it's like feel free to reach out, as well as also to reach out is like to the students. It's like I also think that it's good. It's like to hear from them. It's like to ask them questions and to know from them. It's like how is life here in general as a student. It's like how is the balance between life, research, and so on. It's like all those important aspects that you will face in the day-to-day life.
Right. Velu, anything to add? You're new. So.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of try to echo Brady. Yeah. So if you have any questions, just reach out. I'm good at responding. And I like speaking of life. I stay in the southern part of the U.S. in the Texas, super humid and hot area. And also I stayed in the northeast area in the Boston area. So I feel kind of a Salt Lake City combination of these two, but not in the too extreme. So so far I'm pretty enjoyed the weather and life here. And I spend half my weekend in the mountain, sometimes in the mountain areas, sometimes in the park with my kid. So it's pretty nice, pretty enjoyable life here.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. This was, I hope it was very useful for you folks in India, and appreciate you all joining and all the questions. And again, if you have any questions come up, we're all available for you. And good luck with your applications. And thank you, the team from Utah. I appreciate you guys, all of you, staying up late and answering questions. Take care. I hope everyone stays safe with COVID. Everyone's families are doing well. Take care.
See you. Yep. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.